Yeah. I quickly volunteered, and I soon wished I hadn't, because we were sent, would you believe it, up to hospital in London to get injections against yellow fever. We didn't know where we were going, except that it was obviously somewhere in the tropics. Uh, we went, I was massed with a number of people up on the just south of Glasgow, whereas we joined a troop ship there, but the name I can't remember. Yes, I can. It was the Warwick Castle. It was converted into a troop ship. Half the passengers were people going back home to South Africa to get away from the war, and the rest of us. We were given a lecture after a while, and were told what we were going to do. And this was most interesting. We were told, although America was not in the war then, we were told they were going to send fighter aircraft and others in packing cases, and we being all airmen of technical natures, I was a flight rigger, we were going to assemble them at Takoradi, and then the pilots allocated were going to fly across to the Middle East to boost up Monty and his lot over there. On the troop ship there was an amusing incident when we didn't know where we were going, but we were massed and then given a talk by an RAF officer who I don't know, who said, there's one thing I've got to tell you about this. We've, whatever the word, taken charge of the school, which is on a hill overlooking the harbour in Takoradi. He says, now this is a different thing because you're going to have to make your own bed. And we thought, well, we've made our own beds for all our previous service, wherever we were, until we reached this school. And there was a pile of planks of wood, chicken wire, hammer, nails, and they said, get on and make yourself a bed, which we did. These lasted in this form, which was a bit primitive, for about, I think, another 3 or 4 weeks, when another troop ship turned up with a supply of service beds, which were not very pretty anyway, but they were more useful. But we had to fix rods up the side to drape anti-malaria nets around us to keep the mosquitoes away. And we were issued with leather boots, which I wish I'd kept. They're very nice because mosquitoes would attack you at your ankles there at that time. And malaria was very common. I did, in fact, at my time in Takoradi, have 2 doses of malaria, which weren't very nice at all. On the troop ship, I heard that my hometown of Coventry had been bombed. But there I was at sea, wondering whether my family was alive or dead. And I couldn't get any information, but I did go to a service padre and ask if he could help at all. He was allowed to signal Coventry police headquarters, who went and called my family's address, came back with a message and signalled back to the troop ship, saying, tell Joss not to worry, his family are all right, his mother got a little bit injured, but nothing very serious. And that really was a great blessing that time. Letters home and back took 3 months. A little bit different from today, where you can pick up a microphone and just phone them home. But that was really distressing. All of us had to wait 3 months before you got a letter home and back. Takoradi, we were kept busy. Planes supplied by America in bits, in packing cases, if you can believe it. They were. American ships that deliver them were made ours look like toys. They were big and very powerful, and they lift these packing cases out and put on the side of the harbour at Takoradi. And I was told at that time that a namesake of mine, being Joss, built the harbour at Takoradi. I couldn't find out any more about him except that he must have been a relative because he was a Scot and I'm a Scot and he was a Joss. So that was that. Anyway, these crates were put on trucks down to the airfield into large hangars which had been built before we arrived. And the Europeans out there, before we arrived, wore a thing called a heat pad. It was a pad they wore down their back to keep the sun, if they're working off, to keep the sun off their back. And we were issued with these as well, and heat pads. But we got fed up with these, they got in the way, and we despite them. The local British who were living out there before our arrival say we're letting them down because we were going too easy, we were taking dangers which he shouldn't do to work in that heat, which was very, very intense for periods. My periods of nicer were all right. They weren't all that bad. I think I was in hospital for about 3 weeks, manned by RAF nursing sisters there, who was very pleased to be served by them. That was very nice. Literally had to be unnailed, spanners. We pulled them out and we pitched all this wood out, which the locals pinched like mad, which was very useful for them. And they were dismantled and bits would come out, and almost like a magnificent Meccano set. They'd come out, the fuselage might be complete and the main planes were separate, and the engines, of course, would come out quite separately. We were all the Air Force lads there were all technical some way. I was a flight rigger, and my job was on fitting the controls up to the main plane and the tails. That was my job, which was pretty straightforward and no bother, but they had senior NCOs, flight sergeants and the like, who would go around and check and decide whether it was airworthy or not to fly to the next place, where the first lot would go off and stay at Lagos in Nigeria. And that's where they disappeared to, and then from then on to the various staging posts across Africa. But I was on single engines, which I think were, I'm trying to remember the name of the Mohawk. The one I had was American, was a Mohawk. That I do remember. But we worked hard. We went there. We worked in hangars, getting out of temperature, and they got big fans blowing across the hangar underneath to disturb the air and keep us a bit cool. It wasn't very nice at all. Still, there we are. It was our war, and we had to do it. There was one interesting bit. The resident Europeans, what do they call people when they're living abroad temporarily? Anyway, they would invite us on Sunday, invited out for Sunday lunch, and they made a thing called it was a peanut curry. They named, which was very good, and compared with the money the food we'd been eating, that was a blessing, and it was nice to be there and go and spend a day with a European family who'd been out there maybe 10, 20 years, some of them. They were very good. And we all had a servant, but I had, what was his, Danny Dave? I've forgotten his name now, the lad that looked after me. I've got a photograph somewhere of him standing behind me with a monkey on his shoulder. So that's interesting. And one other thing, I was talking to a local lad there. And how the conversation got round, I don't know, but he was interested in the scout movement, old Baden-Powell. So I said, have we got a scout? Have we got a scout troop? He says, no. I says, well, we'll start one. I'm experienced. I'll run a scout troop for you. So I did. I started this. I got 1 or 2 Europeans contributed money for us to get uniforms. And this lad, I appointed him as the scoutmaster. He was lovely. I did a photograph of him somewhere too. And whether it's still there now, I don't know. I shouldn't think so. But he took charge of it and started a scout troop. And I used to give talks about once a week to them about my experiences with scouting and left them to it. So I think old Baden-Powell would have been pleased with them, if nobody else. Once again, I volunteered for something else. They said something, we want to send some of you up country. We don't know where. However, I went from there to Nigeria, a place called Maiduguri, and then on to Kano, K-N-O, and there, once again, they asked volunteers to move. And I quickly put it down because it was always fun. I had come out of it well. And it was to be a station where these aircraft were flying across Africa had to be refueled at various places, about Maiduguri, Kano, and then to a place called Fort Lamy, which was manned by French Foreign Legion in south of Lake Chad. And there were only 4 of us went there, a sergeant, a corporal, and 2 airmen, to service whatever aircraft went through. And this we did. This is all very interesting, yes, because the French were very good to us. They looked after us quite well, and except I put my foot in it, because General de Gaulle came to visit, and I wandered round while a particular tune was being played, taking photographs. And a French officer came after me and told me that I was a silly brute, you know, not recognizing the French national anthem. I was so busy taking photographs, I was ignoring this music, which was the Marseillaise. I now know it. And we were there, for quite a while. I got malaria there for the 3rd time. I got 2 in Takoradi, and then I got malaria there. And I was treated by a Martinique doctor who was a staff with the French Foreign Legion. He had a most unusual form of treating me. He had little glass ovals which he heated up. And I lay on my stomach and he put these on my back, and he told me these would draw the fever out, which, believe it or not, they did. They were very hot and they sucked the fever out of my back, and I was back on with Takoradi. Now then, there was one incident there one day. I heard a lot of noise and shouting, and I saw a legionnaire, a French legionnaire, chasing a little Arab boy and kicking him with his big boots and stamping on him. I picked up a bit of wood and went across and hit the legionnaire on the head because I didn't like to see him stamping on a little boy. And I was then arrested by them and put in a hut of my own. I didn't know what was going to happen at all, because I was put in with Italian prisoners of war. My sergeant got back onto Maiduguri when we came up to Takoradi. He's saying, what are you going to do with you're stuck in a prison? Anyway, they had a French-speaking Captain Mercenaire at Maiduguri who came up and got me out of prison there. They said, provided you take him back home, you can, or take him away, you can have him straight away. And the French gave me back to my own Air Force staff, and I went back to Maiduguri. I was the malaria stuck with me for a bit. So instead of working on aircraft, I was put in the sick bay to help the doctor. His name, he was Dr. Tats, who was a South African army. Anyway, he kept me on for a bit until he says, "You're fairly useless to me. I think you might as well go back home. You're no good here at all." So I got shipped right back to Lagos and was in time to get a French troop ship, was on its way to England. And that was my end of my African tour.